Hey, you Stygian dogs. It's time to talk about issue number 2 of Conan the Barbarian from Titan Comics and Heroic Signatures, and this one is great. I've had the pleasure to meet Jim Zub at Fan Expo Canada in Toronto just this past Saturday. We had a very friendly conversation. Jim's such an affable guy, and he has this way about him. He immediately establishes a rapport and just engages with great enthusiasm. I started by raving about issue number 2, and we'll get into it, but there's so much that he's giving us here. In a message, he said that issues number 2 and number 3 are where things really pick up steam. And man, I'm so excited for issue number 3 now. I've honestly read number 2 at least a dozen times. I'm astounded how it isn't at least 50 pages in length. There's so much there. It's so rich. Jim also shared a fun anecdote from San Diego Comic-Con about legendary letterer Richard Starkings, basically saying that Conan's getting many industry people excited again. We spoke about how De La Torre's participation wasn't a guarantee. Roberto De La Torre was Zub's top choice. De La Torre had concerns that needed to be assuaged before committing, and thank goodness, because here we are now. On Brissa, I'd expressed my thoughts on her potential as a new ongoing intellectual property for Heroic Signatures. We also spoke of Jeffrey Shanks, his essay in this new issue, and how his academic approach adds to Brissa's provenance and pedigree, and Jim coyly hinted at issue number 4 as giving us more answers, and we'll dive more deeply into this later on. We'd also chatted about Doug Braithwaite taking over the art on the next story arc. This will be Doug's first work on Conan, aside from, I believe, cover A of issue number 3. And Jim had said how De La Torre's work is inspiring other artists to up their game. We spoke of workload, discipline. How does this guy do what he does? We flipped through a physical copy of issue number 2 that he had on hand, and you can sense his excitement for it too. There's this 2-page spread that should blow your mind, and there's a palpable giddiness to Jim as we viewed it together. Every time I viewed those pages, even in PDF format with a watermark along, I get excited and smile. This is great stuff. And we also spoke about fan enthusiasm, the fact that there's a group of people that haven't purchased comics in years that are now excited again. They're subscribing to something monthly, myself included. And there's further excitement coming with the Savage Sword of Conan in 2024, and even Patch Zerker's announcement that he'll be drawing and writing Solomon Kane. Fans had suspicions, and on August 17th, Patch posted this: "I'm creating Solomon Kane stories for Heroic Signatures and Titan Comics, the people behind the new hit Conan series. Kane was my first request among their stable of great characters." Patch then went on to confirm that he is both writing and drawing the series, saying that he's been working on his third Solomon Kane story, and it's been very hard not to discuss it for the past year. It's so very often on his mind. And for fans, it was nice to have an "I knew it" moment. And all of this while he was generously signing some D&D books for my son. He also signed a number of titles for me, specifically Savage Sword of Conan 7, 8, and 9. We spoke of these things and so much more, some other stuff I wish I could share. Shout out to my son, who was so patient as the two of us chatted, and with whom I had an excellent time at Fan Expo. And thanks to Jim for a great conversation. And heck, here's proof that it actually occurred. Now, before getting into issue number 2, let's review the variant covers that had been announced. Cover A is from Alan Qua. Roberto De La Torre brings us cover B. Cover C is from Gerardo Zaffino. And man, D, this is a great cover from E.M. Geist. And this cover has really started to grow on me. This one, cover E, from Dan Parrott. It's release day August 30th, and here's the covers I grabbed: the Parrott cover, the Zaffino cover, and the De La Torre cover. Well, I'm not sure if it's true. One of the stores I went to told me that covers A and D faced printing delays. And here we go. I'll flip through the book, perhaps present a few close-ups of panels. I'll try not to read too much verbatim, but I will outline the general plot. I want you to be curious and to grab your own copy. I just want to give you a sense of how things look and to hopefully convey my excitement and a few summary thoughts here and there. But be warned, this is different than book 1. With the first issue, introductory in its way, I feel a flip through didn't ruin anything. But with this one, well, if you want a pure reading experience, and I think you do, I would caution you about spoilers. If inclined, feel free to skip ahead to the next section where I take a look at the essay by Jeffrey Shanks. On the inside cover, we see advertisement for the Funcom properties. Opposite that, Credits for the teams at Heroic Signatures and Titan Comics. As perhaps all Conan should, it begins with the Numidian Chronicles. Hither came Conan, the Cimmerian. Of course, there's the accompanying map, and I continue to like the quick summary of events. It allows the story to be free of too much exposition, especially when read month to month, which for me is unique as I've mostly been reading collected trade paperbacks and haven't waited to read the next part of a story in a very long time. So you'll remember that the last book ended after a really hectic, gruesome battle with the Lost, the duo fleeing. Page 1 gives us great intro with Conan and Brissa, well hidden and silent, grimly watching their quarry. We see Conan the Barbarian, bound in black stone, Part 2, Homeland. The creative team being writer Grim Jim Zub, artist Ravaging Rob De La Torre, color artist Devious Dean White. He seamlessly picks up from Jose Villarrubia, adding wonderful flair. Lettering by Riotous Richard Starkings, and the editor is Merciless Matt Murray. What Conan and Brissa are witnessing is gruesome. Haller's Rome is in ash, singed flesh filling the air. As if possessed and with no chatter, the seemingly ensorcelled savages are collecting the corpses, a deadly procession working together. Conan swears to avenge every life lost in the slaughter. The unbelievably macabre scene continues to unfold, and our protagonists continue to witness and weigh their options. Brissa is adamant that Conan's Cimmerian countrymen have perished in the army of the Lost. Things get heated when Brissa sees that Conan's in possession of an ancestral sword, another indication that there is something different about this Pict, an ancient blade belonging to a Pict. Their dispute attracts the attention of the ensorcelled, and Conan, like a panther ambushing prey, brings down his foe. Any disagreements between the two are put aside for the moment. They follow for days, moving towards Cimmeria, then eventually rest and discuss the lost tribe and the dark power. And here, Brissa speaks of the Picts not being of a single bloodline, and that they are not a single people. She is not of these people. And she says that they've been corrupted for ages, and speaks of the vile ambition of the forces commanding them. Who or what we don't know yet. And then, well, Brissa, after being on the run for so long, expresses that she finally feels safe. Give me something beyond chill winds and endless dread, Cimmerian. Show me this fire that fuels you. An invitation accepted, passion beyond pain, and sounds of pleasure swallowed by the swirling winds of Cimmeria. It gets pretty hot. The illustrations here are, of course, remarkable. The drawing of the pair's forms as they lay about, that post-coital intimacy, their vulnerability in contrast to their situation, the sensuality, it's fantastic stuff. And then they continue to get to know each other. She calls Conan a seeker, a slayer, and a survivor. More cultural exchange occurs, talk of Crom. Pray to the gods if you wish, but I learned long ago they will only give you silence. Crom watches the world as it builds and burns and has nothing to say of either. We live and die by our own merits, and that is enough. They eventually pass into Cimmeria, cloudy skies loom ahead. They encounter a doomed village, indeed more graveyards than a village, more of the thralled again behaving strangely, staring skyward. And then a baneful light, maddening shrieks from the lost Picts, and then a thunderous response. The sound bringing a terrible vision, sacrifices. These 2 pages, oh my, brilliant. The horror as like an hallucination, a cacophony of moments past and present yet to be. Humanity shed like reptile skin, sacrifices made to appease dark gods, all of it plummeting toward one who lies beyond flesh, beyond death, beyond time. The moment of bedevilment eventually ends, Conan roused by a lost Pict clutching his ankle, and then time for battle with his lost kin. The pair move on through the fog until a form slowly begins to appear. Conan exclaims, "Mother of Mitra." And on the final page of the story, a grand tower thrust up from neath rocky ground, a spire of black stone that shimmers with unholy power. And the next issue is teased, Forbidden Fortress. Its sensuality, the gore, the intense blast of the supernatural, and the promise of future mystery, this story is wonderful and thoroughly satisfying. After an ad for the Conan Omnibuy, we move on to part 2 of the essay by Jeffrey Shanks, where he explores Robert E. Howard's musings on the people he says, and I quote, "I have always designated as Picts." While issue number 1 was well received, there were Howard fans online, people that I respect very much, that expressed criticism around the portrayal of Brissa as a Pict. She doesn't feel like a Pict. Picts in Howard's writing and most other depictions are a very savage, very uncivilized people. They are outsiders in the Hyborian world and sworn enemies of Cimmeria. So who is this civilized horse-riding Pict speaking in common tongue, venturing outside of Pictish lands to warn of the lost tribe? I totally get this criticism. Zub responded saying that issue number 2, Brissa mentions that there are several Pict tribes and that there are many bloodlines, many following dark ways, becoming savage and at war with all they encounter. In this case, the canon prose has been considered and has been incorporated into the plan. He also lets us know that this is addressed in the story pages as well as Jeff Shanks' essay. And as promised, here in issue number 2, we get more answers from both her words to Conan and by way of Jeffrey Shanks' essay. Brissa speaks of the Picts as not being of a single bloodline and that they are not a single people, and that she is not of these people. In Shanks' essay, we're told how Howard imagined the Picts of prehistory as proud warriors of the antediluvian, only to become the savages that we see in Conan's time. But also that in latter stories, the Pictish king is thought to be of a special pure line connecting back to the ancestry of Cull of Atlantis, and then forward to the fierce tribe battling the Romans under Bran Mak Morn. Brissa is thought to be of this line, and what may be the first of many new comic book characters that draw upon Howard's hobby. This may not mollify all criticism, but it does give us a somewhat scholarly rationale on her lineage, on her heritage. It gives us a character with potentially great themes and stories to explore across many timelines. Briss is a strong female character who's fearless but still human, who's physically strong in realistic ways. She could be well utilized outside of Conan's stories. And I'm led to wonder if we've seen the creation of a new IP under Heroic Signatures, a company that we tend to associate with managing the licenses of older creations. I would happily follow future stories based on Brissa. Jim again mentioned number 4 might give us hints as what to expect. I guess we'll find out. Following Shanks' essay, we get the letters page, chain mail, and then a review of the covers gallery. And on the back cover, as was the case with issue number 1, we see a number of reviews. By the slithering eyes of Set, what is this? A review from Stygian Dogs. Now, not only is this fun for me, it's an example of how Heroic Signatures is celebrating fans and their response to the new title. So, thanks to all you Stygian Dogs for being included. There is so much of quality in this book. The overall path of the story, the developing relationship between Conan and Brissa, their passion, the ferocity of battle, the smack of horror-laden supernatural, and the suggestion of sorcery, the demonic vision and tower in the climax that portends future adventure. Is it sorcery or some other ancient power? I'm hoping for the former. Or is it too soon to take on some Stygian Dog? I dare say that Jim Zub may have hinted at full-on sword and sorcery, giving us the complete package. At a minimum, he suggests a satisfying reveal in the next issue. The Free Comic Book Day edition and issue 1, compared to this, feel like small showcases from the creative team, almost a demo reel of sorts. Deserving of the praise it received, and issue 1 was great, somehow it seems diminished by this. Obviously, Della Torre's work can't be dismissed. It brings Zub's story to life in such a vibrant and visceral way. I'm still mesmerized by that 2-page spread, but this is Jim Zub launching full on into glorious battle, planting his flag in victory and letting you know that while the glory of this day may be fleeting, the spoils are his. And heck, we are going to obey this general's orders, free companions though we may be. Crom cares not, we live and die by our own merits, and that is enough. And by Mitra, Jim Zub's work on Conan the Barbarian merits our absolute attention. I can't wait for issue number 3. Fred Malmberg thinks it might be a little bit better than number 2. Check out Conan the Barbarian from Titan Comics and Heroic Signatures. You won't be disappointed. Until next time, take it easy, you Stygian Dogs.